We start? Hi everybody, welcome here and welcome people online. I have to read this because I had a very short preparation span, so I'll read it. So welcome to the Innovation Café. As you all know, this is a weekly networking event with presentations on subjects of design and technology. And today we have Lucas Zoutendijk. And we're going to start right away with Lucas. And his talk is going to be about Blik, voor, Groen. And this edition is made possible by Dutch Design Foundation. And I will give the presentation to Lucas. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Good evening, everybody. My name is Lucas Zoutendijk from Studio 121. As it says right there, we are a design and research agency, and we focus with our projects on projects in public space. Our backyard with a partner, as I started, is Design Academy here in Eindhoven with the Department of Public Space, and this is in about over 10 years ago, and this is the domain that we focus on for housing corporations and municipalities and water boards, provinces. Different skill levels, so we're not architects or urban designers or landscapers, but our projects that we do has everything to do with those domains in a way. So we design parks, or we do redevelopment of streets or neighborhoods on a social level or a physical level. In another way, I think we also always search for a certain goal or an aim for the municipality or a housing corporation that they have on climate adaptation or biodiversity or sustainability in a way. And I think we are as an agency are a bridge between the people or the inhabitants of a street or a neighborhood and those strategic visions and lines. So that's about what we are. Last year we did this project for the Dutch Design Foundation. They asked us within the What If lab, so they do several projects throughout that lab. It also starts with the question, like I come to that later, and that's part of the World Design Embassies. I think Marijn probably should talk about the construction of the parties. So this project is also part of the last Embassy of Mobility at the Dutch Design Foundation. So we exhibited the in-between results last year. And we are talking right now with the municipality and other parties to making a next step. So this is in a way the result from the process last year. So it starts, so the title of the project and also the aim of the project is to, in short, how can we get rid of the cars and create more green? But that's a bit too short. But there are some things are the basis on that. What we see in several cities throughout the world, actually, from the last decades in a way, cities have been designed mainly for cars, big cities. Cities are accessible, you can park your car. If you look at the city here in Eindhoven, it's quite accessible, it's good to reach. You can access the city to the city center, and it's quite a big city in surface where you go out to the neighborhoods. And in those neighborhoods, they are mainly designed for family houses where most of the time people can park their car in front of the door. And this is in general kind of the way this city is designed. And in general, you can say the surface that is reserved for moving and standing still cars or parked cars is quite big if you compare it for space and public space for people that walk or cycle. That's roughly the way cities have been developed in the last decades, and this is kind of a momentum, or things are changing. People are thinking differently about their city, the area where they live, what they want there. Do you want this car in front of your house and in the whole street and the neighborhood? Or do you want something else? Do you want a more livable street, a more greener street, maybe a more safe street where there are less cars and more space to be there and to play there? So those are all sorts of questions around this small sentence, as I said in the beginning. So it's not so simple as that, but there are questions around that. But what you see and what you can kind of reconsider is how these cities have been developed in the last decades result in a city like this in Eindhoven. So you have over 100,000 cars spread out through the city. The density is different in each area, of course. And it results in a plot, and I think this is quite a nice map. We just pull out the parking spots, so you can quite zoom in this map on parking space level. So it's quite detailed, and if you calculate all the plots of loose parking spaces on street level, together it's over like a 2 million square meters, which is bigger than the city center here combined. And only this image or this number is good to realize and to build on your questions on, like, what do we want a city like this with such amount of parking spaces or not, or how can we change it, how can we, so it's not so short-sighted to remove it all and bring in the green, but you can kind of redo it or redevelop it, or at least think about it. But to start, this is, I think, an interesting starting image to work on. And in a way, the small sentence or the short sentence aim of this whole project is, as a question actually, how can we redesign those streets more for people, for the livability, instead of primarily for cars, as I said in the beginning. So can it be more greener, can it be more climate adaptive, can it be cooler instead of really hot, can it be safe, can people or small kids play there safely? Maybe they don't right now if this is full of obstacles of cars where you can't really see your kids safely, etc. So this is primarily the question. And we started, the project is roughly divided in two parts. So we kind of analyzed this area also, like the municipality Eindhoven area as a map and in different angles and layers, city-wise. And we looked at projects that have the similar goal that already is happening around the world in this same way of thinking. So all sorts of cities and projects already are doing this, so this is not like a new invention. And we try to collect all those projects and to analyze it in a way and to learn from them and to take the lessons learned for the project that we want to implement here in the city. So those are roughly the two parts. As a basis, we kind of lay out some maps or some basic things to address the urge of this project mainly. And there are several things that, well, Eindhoven is now like a big city in the Netherlands, one of the bigger cities like Rotterdam, Amsterdam, Utrecht, Eindhoven. The expectation of the Planbureau calculations for the future towards 2050 is that Eindhoven is here in the top 10 cities in the Netherlands that will increase in the future the most in the Netherlands, roughly, in its estimation, about 20%. And if you realize that, so this city, the growth plans and the building plans, the density plans of the city are quite, the ambition is also quite high. And this will probably reflect in, well, more people in the city that live here, but that also will use the city and the public space here more than it is right now. So more people want to use the parks, want to use the streets, the squares. Will also the cars will increase, or the amount of parking spaces, or not? Or do we reconsider this growth of people with another growth of cars? And that's a question. Besides that, some other things. So we also see that, well, climate is changing, obviously, around the world, and some elements that are part of this climate change is that in urban areas, the increasement of this heat, especially in the area where the increasing of people is, well, higher than the areas about in smaller cities. So in the same city, the same area is hotter than the area outside of the city, and this is about 2 degrees or more. And the negative effect is that, well, people with There's Marijn outside. Mostly elderly people or people with disabilities or really young children really have problems from this situation. So in those tropical days or hot days, in this urban area, this is really problematic. Already right now, and it's only increasing in the future. And this also relates to the, how do we want to design our city? Do we want it as it is right now, or do we, because green is in many ways a solution, or to make it less hot? So it's also a question, can we make it greener? So the hot effect is a bit less than it is right now. So there's a relation. Otherwise, there's also, within this climate change, so it's getting hotter, but it's also getting, it will rain more frequently and also heavier, piekbuien. And we selected already only the locations where the problems are the biggest. So there's a legend of 10 centimeters or 20 or over 30 centimeters. So these blue spots are simulations of the Klimaateffectatlas. When it rains like 70 millimeters within 2 hours, those are the locations where on street level there will be over 30 centimeters of water problems. And this is already happening right now on several, it's not everywhere of course, but when it happens here it will look like this. It's already happening the last years on specific locations in Brabant, for example. And we need to, well, kind of make the city ready for those climate changes and make it more climate adaptive. So if there's a heavy rainfall like this, streets and neighborhoods are not designed for these situations right now. The sewage system isn't designed for it. So we can make those normal streets or neighborhoods more climate adaptive, that they can hold on to the water and let it sink in like 1 or 2 days into the ground. And it isn't the situation right now. So those are just some elements that are urgent and happening right now and in the future, why we should kind of redesign the streets in our city. Not sure how I think that was half an hour, right? Because there are quite some sheets. I think, go a bit quickly through the analysis. So we did all sorts of angles in a way, how you could look at the city, and how we should, because we were focusing on searching a street or a neighborhood where we can start with the municipality with a project like this, with a street, with inhabitants, or with a neighborhood, to redo the street or the neighborhood. And this analysis is in a way like a filter and argumentation why you should start in a certain area. So for example, this map is the heat island effect, and within this area, so this is like the hottest area of the heat island effect. So within the red border, the heat island effect is the biggest. So you could say, if we want to start with the city in a neighborhood, this whole area is a perfect area where you have a strong story for the inhabitants also. It's getting hotter everywhere, but within this center of Eindhoven, the urge to transform your street, make it more cool or green, is high. So it's also important to have some good argumentation, because it's not the wish from the municipality to roll this new vision throughout the city, but to start the conversation with people and to transform streets with people. So this is part of your story that you can talk about with people. So this is just one layer or one angle. And we, with each angle, we selected, for example, 3 streets throughout the area. Oh, it's flipping out. Just as an example, so these are different angles, different neighborhoods with a series of streets with parking on street level, more centralized hofjes with pavement and streets and nothing else. So these are like 6 spots that are really with one sort of program, and you can really redo it with other programs. But you can easily use a lot of other locations in the red area. Then the other map is the water problem map, and this is actually the same story. So throughout the city, you can easily select a lot of locations with similar issues, like this. So you can really see when you zoom in on parking space level and what are problem issues where they occur. It's mainly on street, within the street also. And you can also, when zooming in and scrolling around the city, where the potential is to, well, maybe redo the parking spots. Maybe those spots can be infiltration spots for the rainfall, to have it collected here and sink it into the ground. So all the square meters are, in our way, potential square meters to do something about to create a solution for this. These are just some sketches. So, for example, instead of just parking, you can collect the water. You can make a wadi where the water goes through. You can get rid of the car and plant some trees. You can make a community garden, or etc., etc. So these are just some first ideas. Another way of looking at the city as a potential is look at the neighborhoods. Which neighborhoods are the most grey, so the most paved, so the percentages of streets, parking spots, houses. This is calculated in the Climate Effect Atlas. And which neighborhoods are already the greenest. So, and you could say, looking for a neighborhood or a street to start and to focus on, you can focus as a city on the darkest areas where the percentage of grey is the highest. So the change you can make there in this neighborhood is the biggest. So also as an example pilot to make a successful project, maybe the successes here are the biggest, where you can really transform those grey neighborhoods to more green neighborhoods, instead of a neighborhood that is already green. Already, again, 6 locations. Another angle is, we think a really strong one, is the sewage replacement strategy. I don't know if it translated right. This is a document from the municipality. This is, in a way, decided already by the municipality to, based on the age and of the sewage system, where they are replacing replacing the sewage system in different streets and neighborhoods in Eindhoven for the coming years, to 2026. This is decided, and there's a decision and a budget, and we think this is really interesting because these are over 20 locations that are transforming the street already. This is decided, and this is a really good momentum, maybe next year or the year after, to start this conversation with the neighborhood or with the street. You shouldn't replace the city and place it back as it was, but you can. This is a moment to think with the municipality and partners and the neighborhood to redo this street or that street or every street that is coming there in the coming years, combining with the other issues as I mentioned earlier. So you can combine your story to make it greener, or to collect its water, or etc. Or to talk about this issue. So if you select, for example, some neighborhood here, you can also search in this map. So this is the green ambition map of the municipality, to connect green areas throughout the city with each other. So all the arrows and lines are search areas for green connections throughout the city, to physically connect the nature areas in the city. So those lines aren't green right now, but they needs to be green from a green perspective as biodiversity for plants and animals. So they are physically connected, so plants and animals can migrate from one area to the other. And this is also, we think, a really interesting perspective to, for example, transform parking spots or streets or neighborhoods that are directly on an ecological searching area or in a neighborhood. That the argument is really strong to not just put there grass or green or just flowers that they look nice, but to really create streets that have functional green with a really ecological or biodiverse argument. So select plants that are really connecting those ecological areas with each other. And maybe those maps come together in a way. So the green search areas and the sewage system program, if they come together, those are probably like kind of golden matches that the streets is getting open, there's budget. Maybe it's also in a green search area, that you have this really strong story to redo the street with a really ecological value. And then another angle is the more social angle, that you also lose, or as also an argument to select your neighborhood from a social perspective. This is the leefbaarheidsmonitor from the gemeente, and they select neighborhoods on all sorts of elements as income or police numbers or etc. And some neighborhoods score worse than others. So you could say some neighborhoods are socially, from livability, weaker than others. So an argument could be to select a street or a neighborhood, search for maybe the weakest neighborhoods, so you can, because you want to redo and start the momentum or combine or bring the community together to think about and talk about the future of their street or neighborhood, and maybe the biggest profit you can make in the weakest neighborhood, to really bring people together and to build on their neighborhood. So these are just, I think, like 6, 7 angles you can look at the city and base your selection on which street or neighborhood you want to focus on. And we think the strongest story is to kind of build up your layers and not just to do it there with the story and to bring it there, but it's like a list of arguments you can start to talk about with the neighborhoods why something can change there. So this is on the one hand. On the other hand, we looked at all sorts of projects from the last years throughout the world that have a strong reference with this aim. For example, more events like Parking Day that are, and we search more projects, but this is more like a small selection. Like Parking Day, this concept went throughout the world, so different cities throughout the world adopted this concept of redoing loose parking spaces, get rid of the car for one day and do something else, so with shops or just people or everything. And this is nice in a way concerning awareness or the potential of a parking space, but it's also really, really short, so it's also gone after a day. But interesting to see. Another category is more projects more pilots that last like 2 or 3 months or 4 months. There are quite a lot of those. We ourselves were involved by this mobility challenge in Rotterdam, together with the MVRDV. We designed all the spots and the concept and the elements and the identity. And this is really nice where we, several streets in one neighborhood, all the inhabitants were agreed to move their car for 3 months outside of the city in a parking space, let it stand there and use deelvervoer, like shared mobility, cars and other bikes that were placed there underneath this roof for 3 months, and all the parking spots that came free because of those people, we kind of redesigned with elements and placed it there on top of the existing street. And the number was quite high, so the impact of the street and the feeling and the atmosphere and the amount of green was really transforming the streets for 3 months. And afterwards it's all gone. And what afterwards happened was really nice, that people like a year later went to the municipality to ask if this situation could be permanent. So they kind of liked it, and we tested it with each other, and it went well. And that's in a way how you want it. So the municipality doesn't say that your green or the half of the car needs to go, and we are going to put green in your street, because it's really top down. But this is ideal, I think, where people, well, go to the municipality and ask for this transformation. This is also in Antwerpen, happened a lot where they really, under the name Tuinstraten, tested this in several pilots. And sometimes it's successful and people want it permanently, and sometimes it's less or worse. And then the pilot is, well, it was a pilot and then it's gone. And in a way, that's a nice way to test in your city where you can transform it and when people like it and adapt it or not. This is another category. It's a bit bigger scale in new development on neighborhood scale. But we also see that a lot of projects right now have a really low amount of cars within the building of the neighborhood. And this is kind of a movement right now, what you see in several cities. This creates small neighborhoods with really autoluwe inner areas where it's quiet, people are playing, where it's really green compared to other blocks. Kind of to the end, we analyzed because we wanted to learn the process of all sorts of projects and events and pilots. And we analyzed specifically the Tuinstraat in Antwerpen because it's quite difficult to come to the point when people go to the municipality and ask for this transformation and that they ask for less cars and more green. So we analyzed several projects by the timeline and the steps they made and the sessions that they created and the sketches they did and the redesign. Organized it also for ourselves just to learn about it. And it takes quite some time to come to the permanent transformation of a street. It has quite some moments of talking with people, getting some movement, getting discussion going, make some sketches, kind of come back to the people with a first idea, kind of redo it, all sorts of communication moments in between, so there are no gaps of a half year or longer. It happens quite often that the design agency or the municipality is working on it, but that the people doesn't see anything, so that then they have a kind of a feeling that nothing is happening. So there are all sorts of small elements necessarily to keep the people commitment and to have some draagvlak, so people standing back behind the project. And the timeline is quite different from each street and each neighborhood. But the key elements are coming back in the several projects. So these are just different projects we analyzed. And then to end, so we ended this project with a suggestion and a sketch and a conclusion that if we want to do this in this way here in Eindhoven with the municipality and the people, first of all, that what we think and learn from the projects that we analyzed, participation and co-creation is really key to create commitment and this draagvlak and creating a community in a street that really adopt the idea of another street full of cars. Because the right to have your car in front of your house is quite dominant and people are used to it, and it's quite hard to get rid of this image in people's ideas. And to start the conversation, because it's quite easily a negative conversation, or there is people don't want it, or they can complain, or they argue, and to get this conversation and to work together with each other to another image, it's quite a difficult process. So you should really start with no plan and no sketch or no design already, but start the conversation with some street or neighborhood, with participation and with the people, and to talk and to ask about their issues or their dreams or their ideas, and to feel about is there potential for another street or not. And by doing this, and we ourselves have experience with co-creation processes and transforming it to a physical design for a park or a street or something else. And ourselves, we design several ways of co-creating moments. In other projects, we use serious gaming often. So we know it's a good way to have this conversation and to explain maybe sometimes difficult themes or issues or sewage system plans or green plans or climate adaptation maps, etc. It's quite easily difficult, and in a way a serious game, more designed like this. So this is like a first sketch. You can make visualizations or animations and to explain in a way what's the problem, why is it a problem that it's getting hotter, why should we create these green corridors, why do we want a cool city, etc. You want to explain this, so you can work together with people with, well, elements, how they can, so this is a section of a street, for example, if they get the point and if they're enthusiastic, then there's an opening to design together with each other like a current street profile and to try to, well, make maybe more greener, maybe some infiltration boxes or some body or a new, or etc. You can just think about a new profile, discuss about it, calculate the price of it, etc. And what we learned in the processes of the other projects, you can implement this serious game tool several times throughout the process. So you can start with it, start a conversation, make a first sketch or a design, then kind of redo it or present your sketch. And if people don't like it, you can start the conversation again in a quite simple way and work the design in a more detailed level until you have this design that the municipality or the housing corporation is happy with, and the people think their ideas or their wishes are incorporated in the design. And such a tool is a good way to have this conversation like 2, 3, 4 times throughout the process. So this is a main example or a proposal to what we want to implement in the next step. And this is more like a approach or a plan for the municipality, like next year, if you want to start with a project. We propose several steps using this tool, start the conversation, making the first sketch, explaining it, making the pilot for, let's say, 3 months, and working to a permanent situation. So this is just the conversation that is happening right now, with the goal to, for example, come with a street where it's really hot, where that square is primarily for cars and really stony and hot, to, for example, with these elements and blocks, to a more greener or safer street, or a general street where it's housing, gardens, pavement, parking spaces in an area like this, to maybe come with a street where there's, well, more green, more place to sit or play instead of parking, an area for a body like this, or that's the pavement is ready to adapt to water instead of the water flows over it, more climate adaptive gardens, just to have an image, a dream image to work through. And so far, the project so far, so we're working on the next step. Questions?
If there are questions, I will be with the microphone. See if I can get this.
With all these cars,
With the cars?
because in all these designs, we suppose that we're going to remove all these cars from the city, so how we can do cars?
For the cars?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, and a difficult question. So there's not like a quick solution for that. I think several that the cars are, there will be less cars, but this is like, I think, a process. Cars can be removed outside of the neighborhood or centralized on a more central spot, so the neighborhood will be more space physically and more greener when the cars are somewhere else, or other. But this is a difficult, shifting of objects. But we consciously didn't focus primarily and firstly on that question, and to start shuffling with the objects, because we think and looked at the projects that we looked at, when the process is starting and the conversation is starting, depending on the kind of the atmosphere and the commitment and involvement of the people, it's the basis on are people willing to remove the car, or to, if the conversation is there, are people willing to remove it, not only, well, to don't have it in front of their window, but to have it maybe 2, 3 or 5 minutes walking outside of the neighborhoods. And that's in a map it's quickly done, like a proposal like that, but in the mind of people it's a big step. So we think the process and, well, getting the conversation starting is more important, and then come up with suggestions and sketches.
What is the status right now? It's in the design phase, or how many people you have to do it?
Yes, but it takes some time. But the conversation is now with the Dutch Design Foundation and the municipality here to do the pilot shortly. But the decision making it takes the municipality some time to because, as the maps show, it reaches out. Also, how the municipality is organized, it has to do with green, with mobility, with the sewage system, and within the organization of the municipality, those are all different program tables or ambitions or and budgets. So it's complicated for them to make one decision, and who makes the decision, and where does the budget come from. So that's the question right now. But they're willing to do it, but the question is how and who and which neighborhood.
These projects have a very positive impact on the walkability in the city.
Sorry?
These projects have a very positive impact on the walkability in the city, and we also know that has a positive effect on loneliness and obesity. Are those any considerations in these projects as well, or do you see positive effects in the projects that you showed?
Yeah, we have those maps and statistics of loneliness and obesity and reports from the GGD, etc. Not in this presentation right now, but we looked at all sorts of angles, like the series of maps we showed, the list was longer. But we think it's really just good to look at all sorts of angles, how you should transform the city. Cool spots, for example, is also an angle to the distance to cool spots. So there are spots in Eindhoven where the distance is quite long, and there are ambitions right now from different cities that they say we want all inhabitants, the distance is maximum 300 meters from your home to a cool spot, because if cities will get hotter in the future, everybody should be within 300 meters to a cool spot, for example. So that's also an angle to how you can say, well, we focus on several spots throughout the city where the distance is too long. So we should focus there on those streets to make it more greener. But yeah, loneliness and obesity is certainly an angle. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. I think it was quite interesting to listen and to listen the analysis of Eindhoven from as a citizen of Eindhoven, and especially it was very interesting to see the future scenarios and considering the heat waves and etc. And I think the design of streets are quite important, and one of the recent examples that we can immediately associate with is not Kleineberg but Groteberg. So last year, I think they started to renovate it and transform it last year, and as one of the users of this street, I can already feel and experience completely another street. So last year when I was cycling from there, I was feeling completely different, and now it feels like it's a new street, and I feel more positive. And so there are, as you also mentioned, there are also other positive effects on people as well. So I have
good safety is another map and an angle. There are streets in Eindhoven already known by the municipality, like the worst streets safety-wise. So safety here in the Grote Berg is one of the things. You can focus on that, like transform the least safe streets to a more safe or greener or other street.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think that's a really good angle, yeah.
Exactly. So from safety point of view, indeed, and also there is more space to walk, and you feel more comfortable when you are walking. Maybe there is one problem that when it is extremely when it is a busy time, like at 5 o'clock or something, because it's a two-way street, and then it's a little bit unsafe to cycle there, because there is only 1.5 wide car dimension, so they need to wait for each other. Apart from that, I'm very happy with the transformation.
That's good, and then they drive slowly.
Yeah. Everyone drives so slowly, but yeah. And I had 3 questions actually. One of them has been asked, and I think it's one of the most important and very challenging questions. I believe in future, car sharing will be one of the most used way of cars. However, I think that this transition will be slow. So do you have any research on that? Like, for instance, maybe some neighborhoods would want to still keep their cars, but maybe there are some type of users who are already willing to use car sharing option. So this could also help you to estimate what kind of users you have. So maybe some of them will really want to keep their car very close to them, and some of them will be willing to walk a bit, but still keep the car. And then there will be some others who will be willing to keep no car as their own belonging. So that is one of the questions that I can add to your question. And the second one is that if I didn't misunderstood, that you said your team doesn't consist of architects and designers, and then who maybe can you explain your team a bit further? And then the third one, there was very interesting map, and I think it was like the 5th or 6th maps. There were some white circles, 4 or 5. It was written, I don't remember. I'm curious what it indicates. Actually.
I have to interject a little,
okay.
because we are supposed to stop somewhere around 6:30.
Yep.
If you might answer one question and leave the other 2 for the drinks. And
okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yes. Well, as also on the other maps, these are kind of example locations. These are those 6 where you can do it. So where the water problem is occurring, and the parking spots are situated right there. Okay. Thanks for your questions. Yeah, that was the question. That was the answer. Yeah. I can
we'll
answer
do
that.
the other questions later.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, I'll do the wrap-up talk. I have to take my little speakbriefje. So thank you very much, Lucas, for your interesting talk. And thanks everyone here and online for attending this conversation. And we will head over to the bar and discuss some more, where you can also answer the rest of the questions. I have some as well. You're welcome to stay for dinner. I read that. So the dish today, I wrote it down, is spaghetti with cherry tomato sauce, burrata, and basil for the price of $17.50. And I would hope to see you all online or in person for the next talk next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.